There are certain places that seem designed to exist outside the passage of time, where the rhythm of life slows to a near standstill, where the air carries a stillness that feels almost deliberate, and where the people who pass through often leave behind little more than fleeting impressions, as though they were never truly meant to stay. And yet, every so often, a story emerges from such a place that refuses to fade, a story that lingers, quietly demanding to be remembered. The Ashford Inn was one such place, situated along a quiet highway that connected two modest towns separated by miles of farmland and scattered woodland. The inn had stood for over 4 decades, offering travelers a place to rest, to pause, and then to move on, its faded sign and modest facade giving little indication that it would one day become the center of a mystery that would haunt everyone who had ever passed through its doors. On the evening of February 11th, 2025, a young woman named Kavya Mehta checked into the Ashford Inn. She arrived alone, carrying a single suitcase and a small backpack, her demeanor calm but reserved, as though she had already decided that her stay would be brief and uneventful. And when she approached the front desk, she spoke politely, providing her identification, signing the register, and requesting a room on the 2nd floor, away from the road. The clerk on duty, a middle-aged man named Suresh Pillai, would later recall that there was nothing particularly unusual about her at the time, except perhaps the way she glanced over her shoulder more than once, as though she was expecting someone, or perhaps hoping that no one had followed her. Room 207 was assigned to her. It was a standard room, modestly furnished, with a single bed, a small desk, and a window that overlooked the back of the property, where a narrow stretch of overgrown land led to a line of trees that seemed to absorb the light as evening settled in. Kavya thanked the clerk, took her key, and walked up the staircase without hesitation. It was the last time anyone would see her, at least officially. The following morning, housekeeping noted that room 207 had not been vacated, and while this was not unusual in itself, given that some guests chose to stay longer than planned, it became a point of concern when attempts to contact the occupant went unanswered, and when, by early afternoon, there was still no sign of movement, the decision was made to enter the room. What they found was not what they expected. The room appeared, at first glance, to be untouched. The bed was neatly made, the suitcase placed beside it, still closed, and the backpack resting on the desk, its contents undisturbed. And yet, there was no sign of Kavya herself, no indication that she had spent the night there, no evidence of use beyond the faint impression that she had entered the room and then simply ceased to exist within it. Her phone was found on the bedside table. It was switched off. Her identification, her wallet, and her belongings were all present, arranged in a way that suggested she had not intended to leave. The door showed no signs of forced entry. The window was locked from the inside, and the key to the room was still on the small wooden desk, exactly where a guest might leave it before stepping out briefly, intending to return. But she never did. When the police were notified, the case initially appeared to be a missing person investigation, one of many that begin with uncertainty and often end with explanations that, while not always satisfying, are at least grounded in reality. However, as the investigation progressed, it became clear that this was not going to be one of those cases. The timeline itself was the first anomaly. Security footage from the front desk confirmed that Kavya had checked in at approximately 8:14 p.m., and cameras in the hallway showed her entering room 207 shortly thereafter. But beyond that moment, there was nothing. No footage of her leaving the room, no record of her exiting the building, and no indication that she had interacted with anyone else on the property. It was as though the story had simply stopped. Investigators began to piece together Kavya's background, searching for clues that might explain her presence at the Ashford Inn, and what they found suggested that she had not been there by chance. Kavya was a freelance graphic designer, living in a nearby city, with no known history of travel to that area, and no apparent reason to stay at a roadside inn that was far removed from her usual environment. Her family confirmed that she had left home the previous afternoon, telling them only that she needed a few days to herself, a statement that, in hindsight, felt incomplete. Phone records revealed that she had been in contact with an unknown number in the days leading up to her disappearance, a number that had since been deactivated. Messages between the two were sparse but pointed, referencing a meeting, a payment, and something described only as confirmation. The meaning of these messages remained unclear. Then came the witness. A truck driver, who had stayed at the inn that same night, reported hearing voices in the hallway outside room 207 at approximately 11:30 p.m., voices that suggested a conversation, though he could not make out the words, followed by what he described as a sudden silence, abrupt and unnatural, as though something had ended in an instant. This account introduced a new possibility, that Kavya had not been alone. Investigators revisited the security footage, examining it with greater scrutiny, and while there was no clear visual confirmation of another individual entering room 207, there was a brief moment, a fraction of time, where the camera feed flickered, a disruption that lasted less than 2 seconds, but was enough to obscure a portion of the hallway. Whether this was a technical glitch or something more deliberate could not be determined. The case began to attract attention. Media coverage brought increased scrutiny, and with it, new information began to surface, including reports of similar incidents at other roadside establishments, incidents involving individuals who had checked in and, under circumstances that defied easy explanation, had disappeared without a trace. Though none of these cases had been conclusively linked, the similarities were difficult to ignore. As investigators expanded their search, they uncovered a detail that would shift the focus of the case once again. A hidden camera, discovered during a routine inspection of the room's ventilation system, had been installed in a position that allowed it to capture a partial view of the interior. The device was not part of the inn's security system. It had been placed there deliberately. The footage it contained was incomplete, corrupted in parts, but what remained was enough to confirm that Kavya had indeed been in the room that night, and more importantly, that she had not been alone. The video showed her standing near the desk, speaking to someone who remained outside the frame, her posture tense, her movements cautious, as though she was engaged in a conversation she did not fully control. At one point, she turned toward the door. It opened. And then, the footage ended. The discovery of the camera transformed the investigation, raising questions not only about Kavya's disappearance, but about the possibility of a broader network operating in the shadows, using anonymity and transience as tools to conceal their activities. Attention turned to the management of the Ashford Inn, to its staff, and to anyone who might have had access to the room prior to Kavya's arrival, but no direct evidence linked them to the installation of the device. The case deepened. Weeks passed, and then months, with no definitive answers, until finally, a breakthrough emerged. A man was arrested in connection with an unrelated investigation involving illegal surveillance and identity fraud, and during the course of that investigation, authorities uncovered evidence that linked him to multiple properties, including the Ashford Inn. His name was Arvind Khanna. Under interrogation, Arvind admitted to installing hidden cameras in hotel rooms, claiming that he used the footage for blackmail and extortion, targeting individuals who he believed could be manipulated or coerced. When confronted with the details of Kavya's case, his initial denials gave way to a fragmented account. He admitted to being present at the Ashford Inn on the night of her disappearance. He admitted to entering room 207, but his description of what happened next was incomplete, contradictory, and, at times, disturbingly vague. He claimed that the situation had escalated unexpectedly, that Kavya had discovered the camera, that there had been an argument, and that in the chaos that followed, something had gone wrong. What exactly had gone wrong he could not, or would not, fully explain. Despite extensive searches, Kavya Mehta's body was never found. Her case remains officially unresolved. The Ashford Inn still stands, its rooms occupied by travelers who may or may not know the story of room 207. And while time has moved on, as it always does, there are certain questions that remain suspended, unanswered, lingering in the quiet spaces between what is known and what is merely suspected. Because sometimes, the most unsettling mysteries are not the ones that end with certainty, but the ones that leave behind just enough truth to suggest something far more complex, something that exists just beyond the reach of understanding. And somewhere, in that narrow space between presence and absence, between arrival and departure, Kavya Mehta's story continues.